New study just finds that among the 20 wealthiest nations, America, dead last. It's the worst in child mortality. Of the 20 wealthiest nations, 19 of them are ahead of the United States. Right? The United States, oh, we're so great, everything's so great. It's ridiculous. This is just unbelievable. A 2017 report by Save the Children ranked 172 countries from best to worst in an effort to explore the main reasons why childhood comes to an early end in certain places. Right? The United States has the worst overall child mortality rate compared with those 19 other wealthy nations in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. That study is published in the journal Health Affairs on Monday. It examined child mortality rates between 1961 and 2010 in the U.S. and comparable nations, a group of 35 countries. Founded to improve economic development and social well-being around the world, found that mortality rates were not evenly distributed. It's unbelievable. One of the reasons? 1,300 gun deaths every year. All these wealthy industrialized nations don't have the gun problem that we have. They actually have enforceable gun laws. You can't just easily buy a gun. And because you can't just easily buy a gun, then the criminals don't easily have guns. So you happy with that, NRA gun people? 1,300 kids die every year because of you. Your fault. That's on you. Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, all ahead of us. Right? The researchers found that childhood mortality rates declined gradually from 1961 to 2010 for the U.S. and 19 other nations, which has a big success for public health. Yet the U.S. rate fell at a slower pace than other nations over 50 years. Specifically during the decade 2001-2010, the researchers found that the mortality rate in the United States was about 75% higher for infants and about 50% higher for children ages 1 to 19 than the average rate calculated for all of the countries in the study. During that decade, other countries with infant mortality rates also above the overall average included Switzerland, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Ireland, the United Kingdom, Canada, Austria. We found that the excess deaths in the United States are concentrated among infants, such cases such as immaturity and SIDS, and among teens from injuries. Existing research has shown that infants die more frequently in the United States, but this was the first time we were able to see that this trend started decades ago. We were also surprised by how much more often U.S. adolescents, in particular boys, are dying from injuries. The study found that a 15 to 19-year-old in the U.S. is 82 more times likely to die from gun violence in the U.S. than any other wealthy democratic nation. 82 more times. And to that woman that came up and interrupted my niece and I, and we were having dinner, and we were talking about the gun issue, and she was like a gun owner, and you don't know what you're talking about, your information's wrong, and I trained, my kids all know how to use guns, and I'm proud of that. Well, they're 3 times more likely to kill themselves and 80 times more likely to die from gun violence than any other industrial nation in the world. She's like, there's terrorists in Europe. Oh, God. Interventions could help reverse these mortality rates in the U.S., such as aiming to reduce the number of automobile accidents, assaults by firearm, and infant deaths across the country. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released a report last week showing state-by-state racial disparities in infant mortality rates, with the Mississippi Valley having the highest, Massachusetts having the lowest rate from 2013 to 2015. Unbelievable. There are no major differences between the United States and other countries in terms of infectious disease or cardiovascular disease, for example. The main reason the United States is lagging behind other nations is because of prenatal mortality, including maternal conditions affecting a fetus or newborn, and injuries mostly due to firearms. There's areas in the United States that could be preventing deaths, and they're failing to do so due to gaps in public policy, a weak social safety net, and persisting social disparities that affect families, mothers, and children's health unequally. The future of any country is in its children, so at the fundamental level, we can see a country's investment in its future in the way the children are surviving and thriving. To turn these trends around, we need to think beyond medical care to address the social environment children live in. Every child deserves the opportunity to live a full, healthy, and safe life. These findings show that we are not living up to that promise and that we have fallen short of that promise for the last 30 years. Congratulations, America. Here's something you're number one in: child mortality rates for industrialized democratic nations. When you're pro-war, pro-gun, this is what you get. You don't have a social safety net. You don't have good jobs, so there's crime. 60% of the country doesn't have $1,000 in savings. We don't have good health care. So pregnant mothers are not getting the health care they need, especially if they're in a poor community. We have an opioid epidemic. We have a healthcare system that is run by healthcare corporations that is just for profit. Healthcare is a right. It's a right, not a privilege, but not in this country. And this is why we have these rates. It's embarrassing. America should be number one in all of the good categories. It's the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We should have the lowest childhood mortality rates. We should have the lowest violence, the lowest crime. We should have all of those things. We could have all of those things. But the greedy corporate assholes that own this government don't want to let that happen. So keep being a dumb Republican or stupid neoliberal and keep thinking that your party is somehow better and this bullshit will keep happening. 85% of the country wants gun reform. 85%, but not when the NRA has its filthy, blood-soaked, greasy, maggot-ridden hands around the necks of the politicians. Congratulations, gun owners. You're helping kill children. Way to go.